Welcome to the EDIC meeting for June 29th. It's being held virtually, and a recording will be made available after the meeting is over. So, we're here to continue talking about a draft strategy and ordinance language for addressing vacant storefronts, to review our cover letter perhaps, to talk through the registry approach, all of that. We're ironing out some details that we've been working on for several meetings now. Cassie, you sent both an initial review of Arlington's bylaw with some changes included that would, some of the really easy targets for how do you change this into something for City of Easthampton. That was really valuable. Thank you for doing that. And Cassie also drafted up a linear, here are the steps and how you work through the vacant storefront process, which is also really useful. Paul, you had drafted a cover letter, which we had just started discussing at the last meeting. So I think that these are all of a piece. We can talk about it. We can go in whatever order you would like to address. I think it makes sense to talk through our proposed process. So the most recently sent email from me to you guys that Cassie drafted, so that we can then talk about what we might reflect in that cover letter to attempt to have conversations with some of our city stakeholders. What do you think?
Once we define the process, the regs will write themselves, pretty much, sort of.
Yeah, and I think that what we're talking about is we want to have a sense of what we are actually proposing as a unit, and we want, I think, to be able to share that with people in the community beforehand, before we bring that to the city council. Is that the general impression?
Share that with who, though, Gwen?
Share which with who? The cover letter or the ordinance?
The ordinance. I mean, I think if we, to Cassie's point, if we draft this up in whatever form, I don't know. My gut tells me we get a city councilor that sponsors it. It goes to the city council. It's going to end up in the ordinance committee, and that's where it's going to get chewed apart, where we will have to be actively involved in the process of going to those subcommittee meetings to make sure it doesn't get drafted in a way we don't want it drafted.
Well, I think the point of the cover letter was that was part of this EDIC idea generation process, where we would take this idea to property owners who have vacant storefronts in our areas of interest right now, to share with them this idea and get some input, anticipating that ordinance committee or the rest of city council would say, and have you talked to property owners about this? So am I correct about that? Someone correct me if I'm wrong.
No, that sounds familiar.
So I think that's what we're talking about today. I want to have the EDIC to have a shared vision of what that process actually looks like, so we could each be able to speak reasonably intelligently about what our initial process looks like, so that we can refer to that. We don't have to refer to the entire thing in a cover letter, but be able to point to that in a conversation with whoever we choose to talk to. So does that sound right?
I think it's there. We want to do both simultaneously. I think the plan would be to go to the subcommittee, the ordinance subcommittee, before we speak to City Hall at all. But at the same time, we do form a cover letter for property owners to say that we're in the process of, and if all things go great, then we won't have to do anything. We won't have to go through the subcommittee or anything. But more than likely, we're going to get deaf ears or negative responses, of which case we do need to form an ordinance to get our process through. So I think it's both at the same time.
Oh, okay. Others, you have an opinion about these tactics?
I agree with that. I think that we should send the letters out to the business owners, but don't stop and just keep doing the ordinance. And then we can maybe change what we're doing based on the feedback we receive. But I'm with Casey. I don't think we're going to get much. I think we should act in good faith and hope we get something, but just keep going with that ordinance. I think that the letter we sent to the business owners is I don't want to use the word generous, but I think it's us acting in the best faith that we can. I don't think we even need to do that, though.
Well, remind me, Gwen, what the intent of that was.
I'm taking notes. The intent of the cover letter?
Yes.
I think it was so that we could identify several of our known vacant property owners in town and share some information with them, invite a conversation with them, so that we could in good faith say, we've had a conversation with a couple of property owners in town and here are their thoughts, for good or ill, be able to say that we talked with them. Casey?
Yeah, so it doesn't seem like we're blindsiding them. To say that this is an initiative, and that first line in that paragraph says it. It's as an economic group, we're looking to enhance and create the good business environment that the city could provide. And because of their vacant building, for all those different reasons that it lists, that's an issue that we're looking to resolve. And it's not any one business owner,
Right.
but it's general thing. So it's a basically to say, hey, play ball with us, and if you do get hit with this hard hit, it's because we told you what our intentions are, and I'm sorry if you're surprised that we're hitting you so hard. Say Moriarty's building's got to come down. You know what I mean? But we're coming to them at a point of saying we want to resolve this stuff, and this is how other communities are doing it, and we look forward to your engagement.
So to your point, Casey, it makes sense now to me that this is basically just a heads up. This is coming, and it's not an invitation for discussion about, hey, wait a minute, I don't think you should do this, or I don't think this is a good idea. I think it has to move forward. The letter is sort of communication, information, heads up, this is coming.
Exactly.
I would say that, we should be open to obviously the different perspectives that, property owners might have if they do come and talk to us. Maybe they give us an idea that we hadn't considered, or, a perspective we hadn't thought of. I could see us changing what we want to do based on that feedback. I'm not sure that we will, but we should be open to the idea of it.
Totally agree with that, Paul. I just, to someone's point earlier, I don't know if it was Casey's or not, or maybe it was Chris's, I'm not sure you're going to get a lot of positive feedback about this. And it might be more about, here we go again, a backdoor tax, or negative this or negative that. And to Casey's point, no one's going to be able to come down the road when it goes into effect and say, we didn't know.
Yeah, that's true.
But I totally agree with you. If somebody comes forward and says, hey, did you think about this or that? Absolutely, we have to be open to that.
So it's some artful words letter need to include to walk that line between we're interested in input, or like we're not going to stop because of that. How unstable is the internet connection? Am I making sense? I'm getting it.
Pretty unstable, but it sounds kind of funny.
Okay, maybe should I stop my video? Will that help?
You got better now.
You're okay now.
All right. Well, don't. Okay. All right. Well, so, Cassie, would you like to drive a review of the linear process document that you created?
Cassie, you're on mute.
I appreciate that. I have so many fans going. Thank you. I want to share my screen. Is that okay?
I want to be able to. Let me see if I can grant you that authority.
I am not allowed to. If you show it, I'll talk it.
Now you should be able to.
Can you guys see it?
Yep.
I'll make it big.
Well, that's the email that we got. We all should have that email in front of us.
Yep. But this way we'll be able to make changes in the moment together.
So the first thing that happens is the tenant leaves. And we had defined the businesses as street facing in Easthampton, global. So then the landlord communicates using the website. So not sure who this goes to at City Hall and who's going to develop it. These are the data elements that are included in the Arlington notice. The only thing I added was N, do you intend to post public art? Because it takes a separate track based on that.
I would say that's not part of the information necessary to define a vacant building. That's a way to get around the waiver of it. So that would be not part of that.
I think that's a good point. Okay. So if the landlord doesn't register, what happens?
Automatic fine, $100 for a day. Is that what Arlington was doing?
Well, where are we going to do that? That was kind of, I wasn't sure we settled on that.
It is what Arlington's doing, and I don't understand how we would, who is monitoring to know that, and whether it's retroactive based on the day you find out.
So I think, I don't remember what Arlington is doing, but I think a good course of action would be to start when we catch them. Give them 7 days to register or something, and if they still don't register, then start kicking in with a fine. Just my opinion.
Can we follow other city examples where they find property owners? Or there's something that is a like sort of precedent, something that is what the city already does that we could just mirror, piggyback?
All I can think
Take on the task of Googling right now.
All I can think of, Casey, is if the building inspector finds a deficiency in a property, he gives a property owner X amount of time to fix that, and he'll come back and do a follow-up inspection. I don't know what that X amount of time is.
But I think that would be ideal, because we're already talking about the building inspector being involved in administrating it. And if it's already a system that they already have in place for, administering bills and assessing fines.
Yeah.
But this, notice to the offender that you have 7 days, then charge the $100 a day.
I think that's a good idea, and I would even go so far as to say start charging from the date of the notice. Give them 7 days to make good, but it's $700 if they don't make good.
Okay.
That's just me. I mean, what does everyone else think?
My first impression is that it's harsh, but all you're asking them to do is simply register their piece of property. It's nothing that you're asking them to do. So.
I just wondered, Casey, I agree with the part about sounding harsh. I mean, we always have to remember one part of us has to continue to try to be business friendly. Does anyone think, based on what's going on, when a tenant gives notice to the landlord and potentially leaves on the last day of the month, and obviously the landlord doesn't get a new tenant coming on the first day, the very next day, probably has to go in and paint, clean up, whatever. The harsh part to me, Casey, sounded like 7 days was, I agree, maybe all they have to do is pick up the phone or send an email, but 7 days seemed like a short turnaround.
But I think it was X amount of time after it becomes vacant. So you don't have to register for, maybe it was 90 days?
I think it was 90 days.
That's right.
So they've got 90 days up front, and then if they don't register within that 90 days, we send them, or someone sends them a notice. That gives them another 7 days to register, and then if they don't do it, then they get hit with the fines and going forward the fines.
Perfect.
Done.
So you get 90 days to register. If you fail to do that, we put the hammer down, and the hammer says you've got 7 more days, and if you don't, $100 a day fine is going to kick in.
Yep.
Perfect.
Is 90 days too generous for the committee?
No, because I think that what we're also going to be doing is educating them on what we would like to see from those vacant buildings. If they start to put in the Canon Real Estate or the Taylor, or they gussy up the storefront to try to attract a future tenant, that they're more likely to do that if they know that those are the things that we're looking for as part of a vacant building.
I agree with you, Casey, in that we've got two great examples at opposite ends of the spectrum. You've got the Moriarty building, where clearly nothing's happening, and you've got the Manchester building that the minute it was empty, it went on the market. They actively marketed it, and now it's been sold. So I think I wouldn't have a lot of sympathy for the Moriarty people if they said this is too harsh. I'd have a lot of sympathy for the Manchester people if they say, hey, wait a minute, we've got a P&S in force and we're ready to have a sale here. Can you give us a little bit of time? But all we're asking them to do is register. It's not the end of the world.
Who?
Are we good with this?
Yes.
Well, so who are we asking to, who is doing this notice? Who is sending it? Who is monitoring this?
I think EDIC should do it.
So, but we can't ourselves levy fines. So we are meant to be referring to the building inspector or referring to some other entity.
I suppose it would be the clerk. It depends on how the ordinance picks that up.
I think he's right.
I mean,
Maybe it goes to the tax bill. I think that was an option too. I saw somewhere here.
Yeah, I put that there.
Someone in city council may know a better direction to put in that, and that's where I think we just leave city responsible and see where things shift out.
I'm thoughtful about the fact that doing that really, it changes like the job description of being an EDIC member in the future.
That's true. I would also say,
Significantly.
Yeah.
it
Not a
also,
bad thing, but it would be something that we need to discuss and yeah, carry on.
I think that we should think about the unintended consequence of the tax bill, though. It kind of just pops into my head that some of these businesses might be there might be tax benefits to letting a business stay vacant. I mean, a storefront stay vacant. And if the taxes go up, then that's just a bigger write-off. So the penalty should really be something that can't be claimed to taxes, if anyone's following.
I saw something on the Arlington regs that says that it goes under as a municipal lien. So it doesn't hit the tax line, it hits the lien line, like
Yeah,
your water bill.
Huh.
Yeah, it's got to be something to that effect, Cassie, because she mentioned to us in her presentation that one storefront owner, this was a tax write-off for them. They didn't care if they ever rented it. And she basically had the big stick, if you will, to get them to get up and pay attention.
I feel like having it separate is more effective because now you're giving them another thing they have to deal with. Where if it's just part of their, oh, my taxes went up, or oh, whatever, then it's almost easier for them to not care.
Right.
It's already something they're already paying anyway.
Okay.
Is that, Cassie, do you know that Arlington, they do add it on the tax bill?
Yeah. I think ultimately they do for non-compliance.
I mean, it seemed to me it would be more effective if they've got a bill in the mail, not a quarterly something added to their tax bill, but like if the fine's $100 a day, you get a bill at the end of the month, it's going to get your attention.
So the city.
Such fee and any fines issued for violations of this bylaw shall constitute a quote-unquote municipal charges lien on the property to be collected in accordance with Mass General Law 40, paragraph 58, section 58. Whatever.
So I'm just not sure, Gwen, if that's tax or some other municipal lien. But again, I don't, to your point, we're not going to be the collectors of this. We're not going to be the enforcers. This is part of what the ordinance subcommittee will help iron out as to how this is going to get processed, I think.
So I'll take this off. So the city, whoever that is, sends a notice to the offender that you have 7 days, and they're going to issue statements.
Correct.
This says that if a charge or fee which is secured by a municipal charges lien remains unpaid when assessors are preparing a real estate tax list, if applicable under section 38A of chapter 41, shall certify such charge or fee to the assessors, who shall forthwith add such charge or fee to the tax on the property to which it relates and commit it with their warrant to the collector of taxes as part of such tax. Does that help?
Yeah.
I did do a quick search while we were talking, and tax liens are not tax deductible. That should be double checked though, because, Google.
You don't trust everything on Google?
If the property to which such charge or fee relates is tax exempt, such charge or fee shall be committed as the tax. A lien under this section may be discharged by filing a certificate from the tax collector that all municipal charges or fees constituting the lien, together with any interest and costs thereon, have been paid or legally abated. All costs of recording or discharging a lien under this section shall be borne by the owner of the property. Does that change anything? I don't understand financial things.
Me neither.
I think to your point, Gwen, it won't come under the jurisdiction, if you will, of EDIC to either enforce this or collect it. It's going to come under some city department. I don't know which one. Could be the city clerk. It could be the assessor. Could be the tax collector.
So it sounds like in recommending this to the ordinance committee, we share our proposed language and say, here are our other considerations, and we encourage you to think about these things as you refine and tear this to shreds.
Yes.
I think we've got a spirit now for non-compliance. Can we move on from there?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, then there's the issue of posting public art. So within 30 days of the kickoff date, the notice, the landlord submits an art proposal to, and I threw in the Easthampton Arts Council. Council on the Arts, I'm sorry. And I just, in my own mind, I gave them approval, the right to approve the art. Maybe we don't want to have to approve art. Maybe there's somebody else that should approve it.
No, I think they would be, some part of that alphabet soup should be able to approve the art, because we don't want them to put up a printed flyer and call it art. There should be some approval process.
See?
While there should be some approval process, I don't think ECA is the committee to do it. They're a program-driven committee, and they don't have a lot of time to do other things. They have subcommittees that potentially could handle it, but they meet once a month. I wouldn't suggest them either. I think that there could be a third party that we could potentially find to approve it.
So as part of this, we're going to have quarterly inspections done, and we would want to make sure that, if they put up art, that was staying there and whatnot. Would the whoever's doing the quarterly inspections be able to verify, like, to a list of criteria, is this approved or is this not approved?
That's a good consideration. I think we should include that question, and it should be part of whatever building inspection there is.
I like
and
that.
Follows after who we decide makes that decision in the first place. Yeah.
One suggestion I could make is that we start on a trial basis, that we simply let the high school teacher be responsible for art, student artwork. It's an organization in place. It's an opportunity for kids to show their artwork. We could revisit that in the future. Again, it's finding someone who's already in that business who does that job. So we're not asking anybody else to do more work, but simply adjust the work that they're already doing.
And give opportunity. That's a great idea, Casey.
Oh, Casey, would the proposal be that we put the onus on somebody who's registered to get in touch with the high school art teacher, or the opposite?
Good question.
Because we're basically saying, like, we're if we put the onus on them, that seems more in the spirit of this. Whereas if we're just like, this is honestly, this is just a way for our local high school students to get their art in public spaces, then we're also forfeiting the opportunity to make some money.
Make some money?
Yeah, off of building inspections where there's no public art.
Oh, well, then we don't want to do that. That's the last thing we want to
Well,
do.
I think the inspections happen no matter what, right? I think every
Yes.
was it 6 months, no matter art or not.
But we're not going to levy a fine if there is public art. That was
Correct.
the whole thing.
Right.
Oh,
I mean, so is the idea that it would have to be high schoolers' art in order to not be fined?
No, what I'm right. I think that the landlord themselves should be able to have the opportunity to choose what artwork they want, if they have friends or if they are an artist. I think that the potential to supply the artwork could be feasible. There could be a direction for that to happen, pain-free for them.
So let me play devil's advocate for a moment. I understand where the artwork would look right and feel right, but what if the owner of Hurry and Scurry said, great, I'll put some art on the front of the building? Or the owner of the Moriarty building says, great, I'll put some art on the front of the building. Can't even see it from the road because the hedges are so high.
And we'd have to live with that because they are in compliance with what we're asking. Now, the building inspector may come through and say, the Moriarty building is condemned and needs to come down. That's already happened, from what I understand, at the Hurry and Scurry, right? That's a condemned building. It's got the X on it.
Right.
So, it's just basically saying, you know what? The building inspector already has determined this building is condemned. Now we're just greasing the wheels to make sure that it happens.
Again, playing devil's advocate, though, Casey, you said we'd have to live with that. I guess we wouldn't if we didn't have public art as part of this get out of jail free card.
can I ask a clarifying question? The art saves the $100 registration fee, right? That's what we're saving, right? So really, it's really just if the Hurry and Scurry, if they put art up there, it's just saving them $100. It doesn't change anything else in the process.
Correct.
That's the one thing. So I mean, they're still going to get their building inspections. They're still going to get their pressure. It creates an interesting question because Hurry and Scurry is condemned. So what power do we have then to force them to put for rent signs and deal with the listing agent, because they can't go anywhere with that listing? So we're going to have some sort of branch that covers that situation or a situation like it.
I'm not sure, Chris, that the condemnation of the building forces any action as long as the taxes are current. I think all that X does on the building is a signal to the fire department, you don't need to go inside.
Sure, but where does that put this ordinance that we're crafting? Does that then mean that it could be as simple as condemned buildings are exempt from this ordinance because they can't rent it.
That's a good point. Good point.
And we don't want to send a building inspector every 90 days into a condemned building that the fire department can't go into,
Yep.
Because they address unsafe buildings here and the Arlington bylaws. And it says that they can act in accordance with the building code. Does the building code let you tear down a building?
Probably not until you take it. I mean, the only way the city can take a private property is through non-payment of taxes. So if Moria, go ahead.
Can the building inspector make sure that the building is safe, either fence it off or raise it or repair it? I mean, besides being condemned, they have to do more than secure it, right? I mean, I know the Moriarty building, doesn't have a roof on it. It's so that should be raised, but is the Hurry and Scurry building, I don't understand why the building inspector, without our sort of pressure, can't force them to tear it down. It becomes
sorry to interrupt, Casey. It's just that I've talked with the mayor about that. It becomes a land court issue that becomes very expensive and a long process, because then you're right, you are forcing a private enterprise to do something, and you need the courts involved, and it's expensive. I think what Tom was saying about that red X that's on the hurry and scurry, it's just to keep let the firefighters burn it, because it's too dangerous to save it for the firefighters. Anyone that's going inside these condemned buildings, you're trespassing. So the liability kind of falls away a little bit. It's really tricky.
The other unique situation we're in right now is I'm not even sure we currently have a building inspector. I think it's a bit of a revolving door. I think we're about to get a new one, but I think that's been an issue why not a lot of attention has been paid to those specific issues.
Casey, you were saying that the Moriarty building is condemned?
No, it should be. It should be.
I agree.
It doesn't have a roof on the backside, and the back door was open all winter until somebody went over, secured it. But it's
and that's great.
All over.
Yeah, though that's great, because then this ordinance is going to catch those buildings in the process and get them condemned as necessary, because the building inspector is going to go there after 6 months, and then they're going to make a decision.
I'm sure they'll say things like, well, you're close, you need to secure the property, or you need to repair the roof. And then after 6 months and the roof is not done, then he can say, listen, you're non-compliant, you need to raise the building, or you need to put up fencing. I think it's just a trigger mechanism for them to say, we're going to come over here and we're going to make sure that you do some compliance. Public safety is an issue.
I think where this ordinance might have a bigger impact is the same owner we're dealing with is across the street of all the buildings on Main Street. He's currently got 2 that are rented, the rest are vacant. The apartments upstairs are probably carrying the cost. So he doesn't care if he ever rents a storefront, because again, the apartments are carrying the debt. So that's where we could have a bigger impact, because those buildings aren't condemned. They're in great shape. I don't know why he would not rent those storefronts, other than he doesn't need to financially.
It's a tax liability, not to mention there's not one for rent sign in those stores, and people I've spoken with can't even get them on the phone.
Exactly.
Those that go through the process of figuring out who owns the business. So it's crazy.
But that's where it might hurt, Chris, is if this guy's got 4 units that are empty and he's going to pay this penalty times 4, we might get his attention.
Right. The Moriarty building might not be the win, but the storefronts on Main Street would be.
Correct.
Okay, so what have we achieved? What have we just learned from this? How does this change or not change what we've written into our process?
We're going to have to figure out how to handle condemned buildings or not.
Thank you. Thank you for that summary. Yes, we will.
It may be that we've done all this effort and really we're just targeting something that doesn't even, fix the problem that initially sent us down this path, and then we need another solution.
Yep, but it's a start.
Right.
I think we jumped off with how are we going to handle the public art?
Right. Sorry, my cat kind of screwed this up.
And the those empty storefronts on Main Street would be decent spots for public art.
No, I mean, I would say you could have a conversation with ECA. If they are willing to take this on, they meet once a month like us. It's just that sometimes there's a lot, like us, we're trying to get a lot done in an hour, and they're in the same boat. So it's great to think that we can ask volunteers to do more, but it's also hard to ask volunteers to do more.
So I was talking with Burns Maxey, who's the executive director of Old Town Hall, and I wonder, she said, if there's anything that I can do to participate in what you're thinking about, let me know. And so we could maybe run this by her and see what her thoughts are as well. She's clever. She's connected in town. She's an arts thinker.
We could have people who are on a jury. It's the same thing. It's like you commit to doing it for a year. If These you five people are on a jury. I could be one of them, and we got hit with 3 or 4 pieces of artwork a year. We could simply say, I approve that or I don't approve that. So we could say a juried.
I like that.
A jury panel.
And do we want to talk about what kind of criteria we would want or guidelines we want for art, and what kind of things would be checked? I mean, it's way too long. That we don't want that rabbit hole. Okay.
I had thought that too. I think that we should leave it to the
later time.
Leave it to whomever is approving the artwork, because artwork is very different to a lot of people. And
we
you have
to go back to Arlington and say, how did you do it?
Yeah. We also have to keep in mind the unintended consequence of a store owner putting up a piece of spiteful art, in which it really is art.
Right.
But it's not helping the downtown any. You know what I mean?
Right.
Could be very anti-EDIC art.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about
We have all of our pictures up on it. You know?
But
Good job, St. Pierre, giving people ideas. Way to go.
I guess as long as the art has to be approved by someone, it protects.
Jury leaves it fine.
All right, financial hardships.
Yeah, I like this, and I think it goes back to who's creating and monitoring the register in the first place. Because Allie talked about how she's had conversations with people, and I think she must have some. I can't remember if it's listed in the bylaw what counts as like a compassionate case, or well, I'm really trying. Da-da-da-da.
They don't define it, actually.
They're not.
They just say financial hardship, and you have to make a case for it.
I think it's fair to remind everyone that we're not looking to make money off the registration fee. All we want are people to register. So if anyone makes some sort of case that makes some sort of sense, fine. Get on the list, waive the fee.
But not
I guess
wanting to doesn't count.
Right. I guess the question is A, by whom? And I guess by whom can define criteria for it?
Us.
Fine by me.
We define the criteria?
No, we review the case, I think Casey's saying.
I like that.
Yeah, the more we do and the less we have to ask of others, the less cumbersome this is.
Okay. Then we'll take this tax bill thing out. Then ultimately the vacancies posted to the property list. And who's going to manage that?
Sorry for jumping in so much, but I think it's possible to share a frame on the city website that has a shared Google Doc that we could maintain or somebody could maintain. I think we could maintain that list pretty fine. And anytime we change the Google Doc, it should automatically update on the city website. That's what a modern website can do. Pretty sure we can do it, not positive. I can talk to Barb if we decide to do that.
It sounds feasible.
Then, Paul, I completely forgot that we were going to do quarterly inspections. The building inspector goes quarterly? Is that it?
Yep.
And you levy a $100 fee with every inspection.
Oh.
Yeah.
And then they have to annually re-register. That's it.
So the fee for registration is separate from what they would pay for the building inspector? Because I thought at one time we had said it'd be like a $400 registration fee, but that would cover a year's worth of inspections. But I think we've talked about different ideas with that. So we should just be clear about how we want that to work.
I think that we were initially saying if you don't register, then we levy a fine basically. But once you're on the register, every 90 days, you're getting a building inspection because we need to monitor that the property is in good shape or not. And we have to charge for the building inspector to do that inspection, and that's $100. So if you don't register, yeah, you have a problem. We're going to fine you $100 a day. But if you register and you're actively working toward renting, if you make it to like 120 days, you're only going to have one building inspection.
Okay. So there's not actually going to be a fee at the time of registration.
Right.
Not
Because
a
you're
building
getting-
inspector fee.
Want to make sure I got that. Let's see. Yeah, okay. Sorry.
Well, I guess we should talk about that then, huh? Because if it's going to cost the city for 4 building inspections a month, a year, do we want to have artwork in the window waive all of that, or do we want to just have artwork in the window waive the first the first registration fee, or somewhere between?
What did it do in Arlington? Do you remember?
I do not. But I do like the building inspector going out periodically to make sure it's not falling down and getting all crappy.
So Arlington levies their registration fee on an annual basis. So they're basically charging you, anticipating that you're going to have 4 inspections a year. And so they do waive the entire annual fee if you have public art up. That seems like the wrong approach to me.
Well, no, it sounds like the city just eats the cost of the inspection they just eat the cost.
Does anybody know if these inspections are line items, or is it just part of the salary of the inspector? So are we really eating costs, or are we just giving more work?
I don't think we know that. So that's a consideration that we need to include whenever we submit this, unless that's something we want to resolve before we submit this to the ordinance committee.
I'll find the answer out to that question.
All right.
And I also think that it might not be that big of an issue, considering, say, there's a dozen buildings. 10 of them may actually be actively on the market or might have some sort of activity. The inspector doesn't really physically need to go there as much as being like, nothing's changed in 90 days in the neighborhood. It's not like there's been a fire, not like there's been water damage. So it's not like they have to spend 45 minutes at a location. You know, it's not like he has to go back to Moriarty and say like, yeah, it's still a dump. You know, it's like it could be a drive-by, as simple as a drive-by.
I think we're going to have to handle what happens if someone decides they don't want to comply with the inspection, because the inspector can't just walk into those Union Street storefronts. They need the key. And what if someone decides, go pound sand, I'm not giving you the key? We're going to have to figure that branch out.
Is there already a process for that, though?
Maybe. It seems like there should be.
I'm not convinced that there's any current inspections of vacant storefronts going on.
Huh.
I'm guessing we're liable to hear right out of the gate the building inspector won't have time for any of this. And that's my fear, what Casey said. Would the city give that authority to some other entity? I don't know. But based on what's going on in that department, I'm not so sure how much inspection of any property is going on other than new construction. There's not a lot of that going on in the city.
I totally hear that, Tom, but I'm tempted to say, tough, you know what? I mean, if the council agrees and the mayor signs it, then the mayor's going to have to get that building inspector into shape, you know?
I would agree. If it's in there and it's part of the duties and it doesn't happen, that's the mayor's problem, not ours.
That's right.
Okay,
Cassie,
so we have some proposals for this.
Cassie, could you do me a favor and just go all the way back up to number 1? I apologize for skipping past that.
Oh, stop. Don't apologize.
Tenant leaves business. When we say street-facing business in Easthampton, one of the things that Jeff Bagg had strongly recommended is that we identify a district. And he was suggesting Cottage, Union, and Main is the business district that we're identifying. So I don't know that we want to be as vague, and maybe you didn't mean to be by putting in the parentheses, but I don't think we want to be as vague as street-facing business in Easthampton.
I think we had this conversation in the group before, and we agreed that, as I understood it, we agreed that our efforts would focus on those 3 areas, that we wanted to make it more inclusive for the purpose, especially for the registry, so people would know what property's open. Did I get it right?
I think, yeah, so we like the idea that the registry is valuable because if it's public facing, that means people who are seeking store frontage can find what's available across all of Easthampton. And at least preliminarily, I think we like the idea of focusing on our primary business districts. But my takeaway from that conversation was that that was an unresolved question that had a lot of compelling arguments in all directions.
I'm just basing that on what Jeff had told me, that he thought we should be very specific about a district that we are trying to impact, at least out of the gate.
Yeah.
When we bring this to city council.
I mean, I think we could decide that this is a phased sort of thing if we wanted to, and say that we really focus on the ones that are on those 3 streets to start with. I don't know how you work that into an ordinance. That actually doesn't make any sense to me, but.
Well, what we'll do is we'll pick out the zones on the map, and we'll say downtown zoned area is a new ordinance for that specific area.
Okay.
And pick out what maps they're on.
You could put implementation years, like Cottage Main Union gets implemented in 1921, then 22, 23.
Yeah, I guess a part of me says if on those 3 streets every storefront was filled, we might all be having a party and saying, "What a great thing," you know, and not even thinking about the others, because there aren't a lot of others outside of that main business district.
Right. So that specific map here.
Yeah.
Those are downtown business. Those are the only 3 streets that are zoned downtown business. So if we simply say it's an ordinance for downtown business, it says it pertains just to those streets. And now it does have a little bit of side streets too, but our focus would then be, you know.
Yeah, I think, Casey, we could say the downtown business district.
I think that's good, and I think that if we have problems in the future with something like Holyoke Street or Pleasant Street, which I'm not looking at the map, I don't know if they're included, then we can petition to include those to the right.
Yeah, or things that change in the future. Let's just say that, you know, one of the vacant schools becomes businesses 5 years from now, and all of a sudden there's vacant spots in one of the schools.
But I think we should still continue to use street facing, because we don't want to get any future, like the schools of
stories.
Yeah, just like Tom said, if the school of Parsons got pulled in to the downtown business district, we don't want to have to be worrying about their 2nd floor office space, unless we do, but I don't think we're looking at that now.
Yeah, so street facing downtown business district storefronts. How's that sound?
Whoa.
Sounds good.
Nicely done.
Consensus.
Gwen, where are you on the Cape?
I'm in Harwich.
Okay. I'm 2 towns over from you right now.
Oh, dang. Want to go to dinner? I'm hungry.
I did not want to tell anybody that we were at the Cape together.
I'll meet you in Orleans. So, all right, we've worked through a lot of things. Do we think that we're at the point where a person or a couple of people could take this process and make whatever changes might need to be made to reflect this process in the ordinance language, the proposed ordinance language that Cassie started editing for the purposes of Easthampton?
I could do that. If anybody wants to help too, that's great. I'm having fun with this for some reason.
We were sitting back waiting for you to say that, Cassie.
Go pound sand. Ha, 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 ha.
Woo! Shots fired. Okay, St. Pierre. We
Sure.
still, I think, we have this idea that we've got two channels going. One is we're working on heading something toward a city councilor / ordinance committee, and the other is we want to get a heads up out to folks because we, as a group, anticipate that city council is likely to be friendly to this general idea, right? So we got a bunch of feedback on the last on your draft at the last meeting. Do you feel like we are at a point where we need more input on that? Do you want to continue working on revising that? I'm happy to work with you.
Yeah, we were revising that and have a revised one for the next meeting. I didn't put any time in it for this meeting, but I think that
Same.
we.
Right.
I do kind of have an idea. Just want to throw out there, circle back to what we're talking about, the condemned buildings. To me, I don't know that it makes sense that we want to exempt them from this, but perhaps they can be exempted from having the building inspections. And, maybe we look at the fee structure and it's maybe it's different if you have a condemned building, or maybe it's just different for overall how we apply the fee. But, it doesn't make sense that we should be mandating some sort of inspection for condemned buildings. It doesn't, once they've been condemned and whatnot. But I think we want them to be cognizant that we are aware of them, that they have a responsibility to register and make themselves known, and that we kind of want to throw them, some hoop to jump through just so they know that, hey, they got to do something about this building.
What if there was a fee to register a condemned building?
That's what I was going to go for. I mean, I think we can go a step further and say if your building is not suitable to be rented by law, then you have to pay this fee.
Mm-hmm. And I think we get
fine.
They don't get, if you have a condemned building, I don't think you get an art exemption.
Correct. I was just going to go there, Paul, because we don't want to encourage people walking up to a condemned building to be looking in the window at art. So I think they should be exempted from the public art provision.
Yeah.
Could you just real quick go back over the timing though, when that cover letter that Paul has drafted, when that's ready to go, are we going to send that out sort of like when we're ready to go, when we're almost ready to go to the council, or does it matter when it goes out in relationship to when we go to the city council?
My thinking is we want to give them an opportunity to come speak to us maybe at one of our meetings, or even to submit something in writing to us that we can consider and have a deliberative effort.
I just don't know what I sort of remember what was in the letter, Paul, is giving a heads up that this might be coming. I just don't want to in any way have it sound like we're presuming that the city council is going to approve all this.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, I just don't know if the city council should be in the loop that we're about to send out this letter, or in other words, I don't want the letter to become an idle threat because the city council shoots this whole thing down.
Right. Could we solicit the input of a city councilor on the ordinance committee on this topic?
I believe Tom Peake is one of them.
Salem? And okay, Salem and Tom.
Lindsay is the chair.
Lindsay is? Okay. Is that a reasonable thing to do, to just talk to them and say, what do you think about this process? That seems like the right thing to do, yeah?
I think that's a great idea.
Okay.
I wonder if some of us would be open to, I know their meetings get sparse in the summer, but.
Tomorrow.
Yeah, that's called sparse. Yeah, tomorrow. Could we, which meeting?
It's tomorrow.
Which meeting is that, though, Casey?
It's the Ordinance Review Ad Hoc Committee.
Yeah, that's separate from the subcommittee.
Oh, yeah, that's a different committee.
Oh, that's separate. All right, son of a bitch.
I wonder if we could get on the agenda for some future ordinance subcommittee meeting. Some of us, all of us, whatever, go to the meeting, explain to them what we're trying to do, here's the letter. Can we fire this shot over the bow of the business owners?
Yeah, so I'll take that on. I'll write to them.
Okay. And I would,
Okay.
depending if it's a time that I'm not sitting at the Cape, I'd be happy to attend that meeting.
Super duper. Okay, great. All right, so cool. We have everybody, a number of us have a couple of tasks. Chris is going to look up whether inspections or line items, are we eating the cost or just making more work? Cassie is going to finalize some of these revisions to this process and start looking at how we build them into the ordinance language. Paul, you and I can continue refining the language of that letter. I will write to the counselors on ordinance. Anybody else? What tasks am I missing? Oh my God, I got them all. Thank you so
Hope
much.
so.
I will send you the notes from this. It's 5 o'clock and I'm on the Cape, so we're going to end this meeting.
Sorry. So is this the right committee? It's the City Council Ordinance Committee?
Yes.
Okay, that's tonight at 6.
Yeah,
Okay,
I'm not
well-
talking to them. I don't care. I'm going to
Okay.
write to them later.
Salem Derby, okay.
Cool.
I'm saying if we want to do it on the public speak.
I guess my point, Casey, about them being sporadic is they might be meeting like every other month now instead of every month
Yeah.
till September.
Yeah. But if I talk to the chair of it, we can ask to get on an agenda whenever, and that'll be fine.
Yep.
Okay. Cool, everybody. Thanks for being here. Appreciate your time and effort.
Thank you all.
Let's all be on our way.
Watch out for the sharks, you guys.
Enjoy the sun.
So
Gotta pump on the
much.
water. Don't go.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Motion to adjourn.
Yeah, motion accepted. Everybody go.
Thanks.